Welcome to another installment of our 2020 Virtual Global and Community Engagement Conference, formerly known as D80. The conference is a dialogue and celebration of our efforts to solve issues that confront the world's poorest 80%. Traditionally, it's a one-day conference featuring multiple in-person panels and breakout sessions. This year, the conference is being delivered virtually throughout the month of October, including a lecture series, a rosé gallery exhibit, a walking tour, and a series of online interviews with global and local change makers throughout the Michigan Tech community. My name is Madeline English. I'm a member of the Conference Planning Committee. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Leatrice Fullerton. Leatrice was born and raised in Kalamazoo. She and her 5 sisters were raised on the north side of town by a single mother. This area is known for high volumes of poverty, violence, and drug abuse. In fact, her oldest sister was killed in 2013 on the same street they were raised on. Leatrice was born with a condition known as congenital glaucoma, which causes blindness. Despite the odds that were stacked against her, Leatrice went on to be the first in her family to graduate from high school. After which, she attended Western Michigan University, where she received her master's degree in social work. Leatrice has 2 children, Destiny and Erin, who motivate her to always do her best and to make the world a better place. Currently, Leatrice is a program manager with Disability Network Southwest Michigan. In this role, she works closely with staff to ensure satisfactory customer service delivery. Leatrice is well respected and sought after within the community to provide her unique perspective on a variety of issues, including race, disability, and equity. Her ability and willingness to speak eloquently, clearly, and directly about these topics is unparalleled. Her commitment to creating positive change, coupled with her strong desire to serve her community, has led to her being appointed on the Kalamazoo Public Library's Anti-Racism Transformation Team, the Kalamazoo Public Library's Reading Together Planning Committee, the Kalamazoo Valley Museum's Advisory Committee, the Kalamazoo Community Foundation Women's Education Coalition Committee, and as a board member with the First Day Shoe Fund. Leatrice has made it her goal to assist, advocate for, and be a positive representation of people from different marginalized groups in all that she does. Thank you, Leatrice, for your time today.
Thank you so much, Madeline, and thank you all for inviting me to participate on this.
Would you mind taking a few minutes to tell a bit about your work with Disability Network and the advisory boards you serve on?
Yes, so I have been employed with Disability Network Southwest Michigan for going on 7 years now. And Disability Network is a center for independent living. We serve 8 counties in Southwest Michigan. There are a total of 14 in the state, and we are just one of them. We educate and connect people with disabilities to resources while advocating social change. So if customers call and they need assistance, we provide that assistance. We also do trainings. We provide ADA technical assistance, assisting individuals with relocating from nursing homes back into the community. And we also have peer support. So 51% of our board and staff are people with disabilities as well. That's just a brief overview of some of the services that we provide.
Thank you. So you've done a lot of work educating the community on ableism. Can you share a bit about what that is and what it looks like?
Okay, yes, and I actually just finished doing an ableism presentation this morning. So ableism is the systematic mistreatment, oppression, and or exploitation of people with disabilities. And it happens at different levels. So long and short, ableism is disadvantages placed on people with disabilities by the wider society, and it can happen at personal, interpersonal, organizational, or cultural levels. So it's oppression, discrimination of people with disabilities, and that comes through with employment opportunities, housing, marriage equality, things of that nature.
How has ableism affected you throughout your life?
So as Madeline mentioned in my bio, I am blind. So I did graduate from high school, and I also graduated from college with a master's degree, but I was unemployed for 3 years, where I was actively looking for employment post-graduation, and was just not given the opportunity. And sometimes the discrimination looked like, oh, you don't have a valid Michigan driver's license, so you can't do social work. You can't go to clients' homes, or inaccessible interviewing processes where they would have me come in and part of the interview would be to read a case note and write it. Well, unfortunately, I would be expected to do this on a computer that did not have screen reading software. So it sort of looked like I was unable to get the work done because maybe there were one too many typos in it where there wouldn't have been if I'd had the appropriate accommodations that I needed prior to interviewing. So my first job after graduation was three, actually my start date was 3 years to the day, but the program manager who was in charge of hiring was someone that I graduated from Western with. So she knew that I was capable and she gave me the opportunity. And I, at that point, got hooked up with Disability Network and was working 2 part-time jobs to, and that was not the goal. And at this point I did not recognize that it was ableism. I mean, I didn't know, it didn't have a name. I knew that it was blatant discrimination, but what was the name? It didn't have a name at that point to me. And so I worked these 2 jobs, but that still wasn't the goal. I still wanted to be able to take care of my 2 children independently. This is what the master's degree, this is what I'm told it would have done. So while I was on the unemployment journey, I was interviewed by a few different news radio type places where they would ask me about my experience and things like that. So as a result of that, my name was submitted or given to someone from Google Hangout. And this is when President Obama was in the office. And so I got an email from Google that said, would you like to hang out with the president? And I'm like, I really like him, but that's got to be spam, And then I got another email and it said, hang out with President Obama. And I'm like, yes, but I love him, but it's spam. I don't want to get a virus on my computer. I don't know.
Right.
And so eventually I got a phone call from an out-of-state number. It was from a California number. And I will answer the phone for an unknown caller before I answer the phone for my mom because I'm nosy. So I answer the phone and he says, hi, this is Logan from Google. We wanted to know if you'd like to submit a video to, have a virtual hangout with President Obama. And I'm like, oh, that wasn't spam? Yes, I want to do it. Yes, I want to hang out with him virtually or in person. So I submitted a video, tens of thousands of applicants did. And so I was chosen to represent the Midwest. And my question to President Obama was, I was asking for information on his plan for inclusion for people with disabilities in the workplace, because so I shared a little bit of my journey with him and I asked that question. And so after he said, and this is on YouTube, so if you'd like to know what his answer was, you can check that out. But after he said, well, Leatrice, I couldn't be more proud of you. And I got nothing after that because I'm still like, I cannot believe this is something that I was able to do. And again, this is something at that point in time that I had no idea. It was advocacy. So I'd done that by just sharing my story. And it didn't have a name. It just was me saying, hey, sir, you're at the top. How can you help people with disabilities?
Right.
This should not be our reality, and our unemployment rates are disproportionate to a lot of other marginalized groups or groups in general. So,
right.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
So with that, a lot of accessibility issues come into play. What strides in accessibility have you seen through your life, and what kinds of changes would you want to see in the future regarding accessibility?
Okay. So when I started school, I was able to see things in large print. And so the use of technology was not as prevalent as it is today. So there was large print books, also learned Braille, because they told me that my vision would get worse one day, but I didn't believe them, because, what do adults know? But they knew a little something. So as when I got older, my vision did get worse. And so reading large print, so I was getting mad at my teacher consultant. I'm like, you're not making this big enough. And she's like, it's as big as it's going.
Yeah.
So at that point, I started relying more heavily on books. And at that time, books were on tape, on cassette tape. So when I went to college, when I started out college, books were on cassette tape. So the staff people at the university and college would read the books, the textbooks, and I would take them home and listen to them. Now, full disclosure, now that, we're later on in my life, I know that I didn't listen to every single chapter that was read by these awesome, awesome people. So I'm sure that they are glad that technology is not where it wasn't. By the time I graduated from Western, we were more reliant on screen reader software, and the books are being scanned in. So they would come through as PDFs, and then I would listen to them that way or access the materials that way. So getting into the career world, that's pretty much where I am still. I mean, there's no textbooks involved, but there's different applications. So I use a cell phone, an iPhone that has screen reading software, money recognition. I can snap a picture of mail and get the gist of what the sender is trying to convey with me. One of the biggest strides in technology that I've seen, because you may have heard that this is an election year.
Yeah.
One of the biggest strides in technology is the option and ability, and this is as a result of the Help America Vote Act in 2002 that was passed, that makes it a requirement that all polling locations have an accessible voting machine. So in Kalamazoo County, the name of the machine is Express Vote. So I am now able to go and vote independently, because if I don't want to vote for your applicant and you're my reader, like my sister, she would say, oh, we're not voting for that person, and she just got a bonus vote. Well, now I'm able to complete the ballot process independently, and I can write my own name in if I want to write in, and I do that every single time, full disclosure. So every election, Leatrice gets at least one vote. So that is something to be excited about. And actually this year, the fact that we have an option to vote electronically. So if I wanted to fill out the ballot from my cell phone or my computer, whatever device I'm using, and print that out, and I can mail my ballot in that way. So that is another awesome stride in technology. In my personal world, another assistive technology device that I just recently got is a service dog. So I have a guide dog, and I am learning that new world, because my vision has gotten much worse than what it was when I was growing up, and so now it's time to start depending more so on myself and less on my two children, because they are not very good service animals. Like, they don't get it done. So my 16-year-old will walk me off a cliff if a mirror was in front of her face. So it's like, yeah, you probably want to get a guide dog. So I'm new to the guide dog handler world, but it's definitely an awesome adventure and strides for independence. And so is assistive technology in general. I'm able to scroll Facebook independently. I can read whatever books I want using apps. So it's good. But where I'd like to see it go in the future is be more inclusive to all disabilities. So individuals who have chemical sensitivity, like, we might do physical access. We might include ramps, or make sure our agencies or buildings are physically accessible for wheelchair users. Right. But we have individuals who have chemical sensitivities where strong fragrances causes migraines. So in a perfect world, it would be fragrance free. So
that's one that a lot of people don't know about. Thank you for sharing that.
They don't, and I didn't until I started working for Disability Network. I actually collected perfumes, and I always brag that I save hundreds of dollars a year by switching to the fragrance-free way. So yeah. It's just consideration, that's all.
Yeah. Do you want to touch a little bit on kind of how it's changed from before you had a guide dog to now, and kind of the ins and outs of learning to be a handler?
So before I got the guide dog, I've used a lot of sighted guide. So that's when if I were to be walking with you, I would hold onto your arm and you would get me to where I need to go. If I was alone, I would use a white cane.
Right.
But the confidence level was not there. I have had many years of grueling orientation and mobility training. And the winter, and then when it's dark outside, and it just never was my favorite thing to do. Like, I despised it. And now that I'm older, I can definitely appreciate the O&M instructors who assisted me with learning. Like, I still know the ins and outs of our mall here in town, and it's because of that. But the confidence that I have with my dog, and his name is Brewer. So a couple weeks ago, we went out on a walking adventure, which I would never go out just randomly walk alone because my vision is getting worse. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm walking with him, and I'm required to depend on him and to rely on him and to trust him and to guide him. And so that's an awesome experience. But we actually walked downtown Kalamazoo and went to breakfast together, where
Oh,
I used my GPS to get me to where we were going.
yep.
And we got there, and he did really good at the restaurant. And I know my rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act, so I was ready for them to say he can't come here because I'm, you know, I can be confrontational every now and again. But they did not. The wait staff was awesome. He went in and he got under the table and he was quiet, see or not seen, not heard, and I ate and we walked back home. And so that was a really just an awesome experience for me because I've never done that, not even in Uber. And I that is another, like, for transportation, I was pre-pandemic, I was using a lot of Uber transportation
Mm-hmm.
to get from A to B. And now I know that if I needed to rely on public transit, like a city bus or even walking, that I can do that because I have the guide dog. I could have done it with the white cane, admittedly, but I mean, you just look better talking to a guide dog than you do talking to a white cane. So
Yeah, it's a lot of independent stuff, and so now you don't have to rely on other people necessarily to have the confidence to know that you're in the right spot. And yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes.
Uh, can you talk a little bit about how your work connects with this year's theme of pursuit of social equity and representation?
Yes. So earlier I mentioned and I defined ableism, but something that I always like to mention at all of our trainings is the definition of intersectionality. And that
Mhm.
is when we take into account a person's multiple backgrounds or identity markers to get a grasp for the complexities of discriminations that they face from day to day. So not only am I blind, but I'm also a person of color or I'm Black. So
Mhm.
I am able to see this through different lenses and advocate for different things at the same time. So when it comes down to disproportionate school punishments, when it comes down to mass incarceration, unemployment rates, marriage equality, all these things impact my people, either the people who identify as being people with disabilities, or my people or people who identify as being Black, women, both. So you have all these marginalized groups. So your theme and the work that I do, because I'm always advocating for change in these areas. If you look at the different volunteering things that I do, all those committees that I've been appointed to, those are not paid positions. Those are things that I do in my spare time. And it's because when I was looking for work, it was always often suggested, why don't you volunteer? And I'm like, no, you don't get paid for that. I'll volunteer when I get a job. And so when I got a job, I'm like, all right, it's time to own up to it.
Mhm.
There's a saying that goes that either you're at the table or you're on the menu. And I am no longer complicit with my people being on the menu. We need to stand up.
Right.
And so because I do this in my personal life, I do this in my professional life, it just goes along with that theme. Let us in, give us equity. We deserve that. We were born with these characteristics and we should not be treated less than human because of these characteristics. It's beautiful to be a person with a disability. And it wasn't until I was connected with this community that I could truly understand that.
Mhm.
Representation is everything to me. I unfortunately didn't know a lot of blind people or Black people who were blind and who were advocating in this sense. So there may be somebody out there right now who was in the same position that I was in. And if nothing else, they may say, hey, I went to this training where this one lady was talking about who knows what, but I can identify with her. So
Mhm.
I can strive to, meet my own goals. I'm not saying that people who can relate to my story should also share my same goals, because my story is not anyone else's. It's a unique story. But let's get it. Let's be great. Let's advocate for each other. Let's make it. Let's sit at this table and and demand change, equity, and inclusion. So
Yeah.
you guys are awesome for this theme.
How did you get involved in the work, and then how has it personally impacted you and the communities you serve?
So I shared earlier that I was working at a daytime homeless shelter,
Mhm.
and there was an opportunity at Disability Network, because they are huge on keeping advocacy going and bringing up the next age of disability rights advocates, because a lot of people aren't aware that there was a disability rights movement. We hear about civil rights, we hear about women's rights movements, but you rarely hear about the disability rights movement. And these were some fierce advocates that if it weren't for their resilience and tenacity, we would never be where we are today. So Disability Network is huge on developing the next generation of these leaders. So they had an advocacy academy that I attended, that I applied for and had an internship with. And I learned about the disability rights movement. I'm like, what? Whoa, I fit into this category. I'm a person with a disability. They would have treated us this way. They were doing this to us. They were legally institutionalizing us. This is ridiculous. And so that it sparked that passion in me to stand up, because I could relate to these people so many times. When you're a person with a disability, you may be the only one in your family or in your surroundings who has that story. And I did not have a lot of friends with disabilities. I had some, but not a whole lot. So when I found, it was kind of like this awakening thing where you find your people, like, I fit in here. I don't only just fit in with the Black community, but I also fit in with this community of people with disabilities. So after going through the internship with Disability Network, I was still looking for employment. They would call me to do panels. I didn't know that I was volunteering at the time, but I would just go into classrooms and talk about my lived experience with being a person with a disability. And eventually the job posting came up and I applied for it. It is relevant in my personal life because it's my story, but also educating my family, who only has the identity of being Black, on the importance of not being ableist. That's in our language, that's in the way that we treat others, and that's in our expectation of others. So I'm not sure if I answered the second part of the question.
How did it impact the communities you serve?
So yes, okay. So I also mentioned that I do all this volunteering work, but every group that I volunteer for, or every agency, has to have some sort of mission to. So the anti-racism transformation team at the Kalamazoo Public Library, I've been involved with them for 3 years. And the reason why I got involved is because it was shortly after the Philando Castile situation, and just the rise in the killing of unarmed Blacks. So that had me like, oh my gosh, and learning different things about the disproportionate, like housing, rental, income, wealth gaps. That ignited that. So that's why I volunteer with that. The First Day Shoe Fund, we make sure that all students in Kalamazoo County are able to start school on equal footing. So we do that by providing low-income students with a new pair of athletic shoes each year. That speaks to me because my children were beneficiaries of that at one point when I was looking for employment. So that's why I volunteer with them. The Women's Education Coalition Committee. So we assist individuals with getting scholarships. Women, I know what it's like to be, a woman who was low income trying to achieve goals. So I'm able to help with that. So anything that I can identify with, that I go, I lived that, or I know people who live this. I want to give back. I want to be a positive representation. I want to be approachable. Like, I want people to say, Leatrice, this is what's going on in my world, and if you can help me, please do, and I will. So.
To wrap up our time, is there any takeaway you'd like to share, or any other final thoughts you'd like to share about this initiative?
I just think that this is a really positive initiative. I want everybody to keep in mind that representation is everything. And if there's something in the world that you don't know about in the way of diversity, do your research. If you don't have time to join 150 committees, maybe challenge yourself to read more, to learn more about the oppressed, or to donate to agencies who have a positive mission statement for assisting or advocating for the oppressed. Whatever you do, we're all on a limited time. So do what you can to be a positive impact to this world, because we need as much love, light, and positivity as we can get.
If you have any questions for Leatrice, you can email her at fullertonl@dnswm.org. Thank you so much, Leatrice, for joining us for this interview, and thank you everybody else for coming in and viewing. Be sure to check out all of our interviews with other changemakers. Go to mtu.edu and enter Global and Community Engagement Conference in the search tab. Have a great day.